Hello everybody and welcome back to the second part of the Q&A, my answers to your questions. In the first part, I will leave a link to the first part down below if you're interested. I answered the more personal questions, and in the second part I will answer questions that relate to writing. And the first question is actually something that relates very well to the previous part about me being a lawyer, because I was asked a couple of times whether the practice of law and my knowledge of law influenced my writing or informed my writing in any way, or not at all. And this is a very interesting question, because I think that if you practice law for such a long time, like I did for more than 20 years, it becomes part of you. And I would say that it influences or informs my writing, first of all, because of the subjects in writing I'm interested in. I'm always interested in, the individual struggle of somebody against something, individual rights, questions of what is good, what is maybe not so good, or maybe even evil. These kinds of philosophical questions interested me as a lawyer, and they interest me as a writer as well. And with the more technical side, I think that as a lawyer, I had to learn how to write precisely, especially if you have a case with, I don't know, 50 or 60 or 70 big case files that you have to go through. You have to condense it, you have to present a case to the court, to the judges, and you have to be precise in what you say and what you mean, so that there's no ambiguity unless you want there to be ambiguity. So the language, the use of language as a tool, I think is something that I really learned as a lawyer, and that it's very helpful that I've learned that when I write. And also, if I do research for writing, I've done research my whole life. I'm capable of getting to the point of a certain question, or if you read material, to try to focus on a certain point. So also in that sense, my law practice has influenced or informed my writing. And as some of you might know, I also write crime novels together with another writer, Rodney Bolt, under the pen name Britta Bolt. So my first name, his last name. And the plot of the crime novels is very much informed by cases or I've done or experiences I had as a lawyer. And not in the sense that I take a case and just, change it a little bit, change the names and put it in the books. But more, the first crime novel we wrote is about terrorism, and I did a lot of terrorism cases, and there was always Secret Service involvement, well, you didn't know exactly. And so I began to think how it could have been, how I thought it might have been in the actual cases. And from that, I developed the plot for a crime novel. And the same holds for the other two. We've written 3 now. So there's a more direct connection between the crime novels and my law practice. And for the novels I write, or I've written 1 so far, it's more these overarching themes of what interests you, what kind of topic interests you, and the use of language. And speaking of the novel I wrote, The Decision, I will shamelessly leave a picture of the book up here for marketing purposes. The novel was published first in 2013. I wrote it in German, but this is the English translation. And it's a novel about 3 days in the life of German writer Thomas Mann in 1936, when he had to make a decision. He lived already not in Germany anymore, but in Switzerland, but he had to make a decision, and that's a historical fact, whether or not to speak publicly against the German Nazi regime. And you have diary entries of him struggling with that decision, but they're very few, and we know the outcome of the decision. That's a historical fact as well. He did speak up, but I thought that was an interesting struggle. Like I said previously, I'm interested in these struggles between what you should do and what consequences does that have. So I imagined those 3 days in which Thomas Mann would come to the decision, what he would think about when he would go out walking with his dogs or when he had dinner with his wife. And that's what the novel is about. And I was asked, among other things, what inspired me to write about Thomas Mann. And the inspiration actually was something rather personal, because I became a Dutch citizen in 2007, I think, because I was elected to the Senate, or I was supposed to be elected to the Senate, which is a sort of upper chamber in Parliament, and you have to be a Dutch citizen to be elected. So I became a Dutch citizen, had to give up my German citizenship, got a Dutch passport, and that was a very pragmatic decision. I lived in that country. I wanted to participate politically. So I didn't spend much time, crying about the loss of my German nationality. And only about half a year later, something, when I don't know, I think half a year later, one of my visits to my parents, who were both still alive at that time, and all of a sudden at dinner, I realized that I had a different passport than my parents, and that I thought that was so strange, and that got me thinking about what does it mean to be an immigrant, what does it mean to leave certain things behind, what do you take with you, what does it mean for me to be German. And immigration was a hot topic at the time, but I wanted to tackle it, but not with a modern theme. And then I read Thomas Mann's diaries at that time by chance. Again, I read them regularly because I think they're very soothing. Yeah, I'm nerdy like that. I like to read diaries. And all of a sudden I thought, well, here is somebody as German as you can get, because he's a most famous German, one of the most famous German writers, and he had to immigrate and struggle with the same issues. What does it mean for him to be German? And that was the that was the reason that I started to write. And then the other questions that interested me already as a lawyer: how do you react in a situation like that? Do you do the right thing or not? And what is the struggle about that? Came as well. So it was the best of both worlds, which made me want to write the book. And another question, also in connection with the novel, the decision, was, what was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome in order to write the decision? There were two, and I think the one is familiar for probably every writer who writes historical fiction, or at least writes about something or somebody in an historical setting. You do a lot of research, obviously, because you don't want to get your facts wrong. You want to know whether there was electric light and how many cars were there in 1936 in Switzerland, and whether the elevator was operated by somebody, or it was all stuff like that. You want to get that right. And also you have to do a lot of research about the historical figure you're writing about, in my case Thomas Mann, and the historical context, the setting. And then you have to be aware not to put too much info dump into the novel, because at least I had the tendency that I wanted to put all those little things that I knew into the novel. So I had to restrain myself, and my editor, who was fantastic, Christoph Buchwald from Cosé Publishers in Amsterdam, he's also German, and he worked as a publisher in Germany before he moved to Amsterdam. And he would always, remind me when he read a draft, not so much Wikipedia. And he was absolutely right, because you have to incorporate information when it's useful and when it serves the plot, or when it's important for the character, but you have to be really aware of the fact that you have to leave a lot of things out. So that was one big obstacle that I struggled with for quite some time. And the other one was because I chose to write about somebody who is really famous, at least in Germany, who is really well known, but I wanted to write fiction. So not biography and not an essay about Thomas Mann, but I wanted to write fiction. And I wanted to fictionalize my main character, but at the same time, I wanted to. I wanted for people who knew him, who read about him. I wanted still. I wanted him to feel authentic. So I didn't change major things about him. I didn't change his age. I didn't change the books he wrote. I didn't change his family situation, his wife, his children. Um, I the historical context, of course, I didn't change because that was important for the novel. But still, I wanted to add fiction to it. So quirks, what he should do, or what he would say, what he would eat, little things like that. And I found it very interesting to do it, and I had a lot of fun doing it. But it was always always was very cautious in looking at it when I wrote a scene. I wrote one scene in the book where he had to think about something, and I wanted him to do something while he thought. And I thought, well, Thomas Mann, he never prepared a meal, so he can't, prepare a meal or set coffee or tea or something. He would clean his shoes. I think that would fit his personality. So I had him clean his black shoes with very old-fashioned way with onions, which I researched how you do that, and I invented that. So that was fiction, but I still thought it fit the personality, it fit the real life Thomas Mann, and it would feel authentic to the reader. So those were the two biggest obstacles that I faced when writing the decision. And another question relating to my writing is more looking into the future, and I was asked whether there's a book or a theme or a topic that I would really like to write about, but feel I'm not ready for it, or I don't know how. And I actually started that book, and that is a fictionalized version of the life of Faust, which is a German myth, somebody who sold his soul in order to gain wisdom or whatever. And many famous German writers, Goethe, but also Thomas Mann, have written books with that theme, and I would really like to do that, but I started it, and then I felt that it's just not ripe in my mind, so I put it aside for later. But I will certainly, hopefully, be able to write for some decades to come, and I will certainly return to that theme because it really interests me, but I'm not ready to tackle it. And the last writing related question was whether there are specific authors who inspired me in my own writing. And well, the easy answer is, of course, that everything you read in one way or another influences your writing, but that's probably not what you want to hear. But when I look at certain authors whom I admire, and then I'm thinking of authors like Mary McCarthy, or Susan Sontag, or Hannah Arendt. They're always authors, except for Hannah Arendt, who only wrote nonfiction, but they are mostly authors who write fiction and nonfiction, and who in their fiction are interested in certain, quote unquote, political themes. So something that you also could work out in an essay, but you decide to write fiction about it. So those kind of authors, Mary McCarthy in particular, I think she's a wonderful author and one of my big heroes. I think those authors, when I look at their life and how they did it and what they did and what they wrote about and how they made the decision whether to write nonfiction or fiction, those are the authors who inspire me in the author I want to become. So these were the questions with writing, and I'll end the second part now here because it's already, again, long enough, and I will try to upload the third part about bookish questions and books and booktube as soon as possible. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave comments, down below as always if you have additional questions or if I haven't answered any of your questions. And thank you again for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.